starting to cool off a little bit here in North Georgia. The weather has been so nice. I've been able to walk Peach again in the mornings without it being super, like without worrying about if she's overheating or anything. And she's been getting into the very cozy book reading season. Got my fall blankets out and fall candle. I also got an iced PSL from Starbucks for the first time, which I've never gotten before. And it's okay. I actually kind of like our local coffee houses. Iced pumpkin spice latte better. I get mine with oat milk and light ice. And I think I'm going to stick with local, to be honest. But we're here for the vibes. We got the vibes for the video. So I think for like a Starbucks fall drink, I think I just need to stick with my chai. Oat milk, no water. But it's still good, don't get me wrong. Okay, so we have so much to talk about. I've read so many books since the last time I uploaded a video. So today is going to be recapping some recent reviews, spoiler free. And then I thought it'd be fun to end the video with my upcoming fall TBR list. So here is a quick look of all the books that I've read since I last talked to you guys. You will see the Abby Jimenez trio is in there. Y'all, okay, we just need to get into it. It was so good. Okay, so these were my first ever Abby Jimenez books. We have Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer. Now, I had heard that these could be standalone books, but that they are all kind of connected. So I read them in the order that Goodreads said to read them, 1, 2, and 3. And I am glad that I did. If you haven't read any of them, I would suggest reading 1, 2, and then 3. Because book 1, you have a couple, right? They're all romance reads. And there's a best friend in this book. And she's the main character in this one. And then she has a brother. And that brother has a best friend. And he's one of the main characters in this one. So you can read them standalone, but you'll miss so much. Like there's so many inside jokes and Easter eggs and like little moments that will be much more meaningful if you've read the books in order, because you'll know what they're talking about. You'll know the characters. You'll know like the situations that they're referring to. And also, if you read like Just for the Summer and then you decide to go back and read these, it kind of like spoils what happens with these couples, because you're past the ending of these couples and you're reading about them in this book. So if you don't want like any spoilers and you want like the full weight and gravity of the storyline to like really hit you, I would read them in order. Okay, now it's been several weeks, maybe a month or more since I read this one. So let me grab my phone because I took notes while I was reading it for the purpose of this video, because sometimes it's hard to remember stuff. Okay, so Part of Your World, I'll just read a little bit of the summary. I don't want to spoil it, but after a wild bet, gourmet grilled cheese sandwich, and cuddle with a baby goat, Alexis Montgomery has had her world turned upside down. The cause? Daniel Grant, a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger than her and as casual as they come, the complete opposite of sophisticated city girl Alexis, and yet their chemistry is undeniable. I won't read any more than that. But I remember thinking when I read this book that it's like all the best parts of Hallmark without the cheese. If that part of Hallmark and Virgin River had a baby, it would be this book. And you can kind of see from the cover, like he came from this quaint small town. There's the baby goat. And then she comes from like the city. She's a doctor. She's a little bit more sophisticated. And it's all about trying to make their worlds mesh. But I was so delighted with this book. I flew through it. I literally read the last like 300 pages in a day, which is unheard of for me. I'm not like a speedy reader or anything, but I just like could not put it down. And that ended up being true for the rest of the Abby Jimenez books. I've read a few Emily Henry books, and I feel like in comparison, like Abby Jimenez, there's a little bit less spice. So if that's what you're looking for, then I would read hers over Emily Henry's, because hers can get a little bit heavier in the spice. But also Abby Jimenez, I feel like she walks this line very well of like having a lighthearted romance where, you know, you get the happy endings, you get like all the lighthearted fluffiness, like you get all those sweet, cute moments, and like my facial expressions reading all 3 of these books were like, I was like covering my mouth, I was laughing, like she's funny. You get all of that you get, you know, in a rom-com, but she also walks that line of it being like a lighthearted rom-com and it being like touching on some more serious topics. Actually, in her other 2 books, Yours Truly and Just for the Summer, she has like trigger warnings at the beginning, or it says content guidance. So like just skip ahead for a few seconds if you don't want to hear the content guidance. But like for yours truly, it says, I want to give you a heads up on a few themes, including a main character who was cheated on in a past relationship, a flashback to a pregnancy issue, a mention of suicide, and a character who has clinical anxiety. Yet, despite these heavy topics, readers will be treated to laughs and happily ever afters for all. You can find further content guidance on Goodreads, blah, blah, blah. And then, and just for the summer, it says, Dear reader, while my books are all rom-coms, some themes in the story may be triggering for some readers. If you feel trigger warnings or are spoilers and you don't need them, please skip the next paragraph and jump right into the book. This book has scenes containing panic attacks, anxiety, PTSD, depression, depictions of undiagnosed mental health issues, a toxic mother, and past child neglect. Please visit my website or Goodreads page for a full list of content guidance. So if you guys have watched some of my other videos, you know that I have read a lot of literary fiction books that have a lot of like traumatic storylines, traumatic things that happen to them in those books that I feel like really warrant a trigger warning, and they never have them. So I thought it was awesome that Abby Jimenez is like putting them in there for mental health issue storylines. Like I was kind of like, I don't know, surprised by that. Kudos to Abby Jimenez on that. Something else about all three of them that is just kind of an Easter egg that I thought was really fun, and this doesn't spoil anything, but Abby Jimenez is also the founder of Nadia Cakes Bakeries. And so somehow Nadia Cakes makes it into all three of these books. Like whenever somebody's getting a cupcake or like whatever, she sneaks it into all three. And I saw somewhere on Goodreads that somebody thought that that was cheesy and like they didn't like that. And I was like, girl, she's a girl boss. She out here entrepreneuring. Like, let her put her bakery in her books, okay? Honestly, I'd be doing the same thing. But yeah, so Part of Your World is the first one. That's the one I would read. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think there are like other books that are still in this universe that she's created. Like, I think there are other books she's written that reference like, or that are about some of the cousins in this book or something. I can't even remember their names. If I can find the books that I'm talking about, I'll put them on screen. But yeah, if you want to dip your toe in, I would start with this one. And then Yours Truly is the next one. So it even says at the end of Part of Your World. Okay, I want to show you this without showing you guys the last page. So let's see if I can do this. Hang on. So the last page of Part of Your World says, Don't miss Bree's story, coming spring 2023. And this is Bree's story. I really liked this one, and something else that I've noticed too is that she does a really good job at making each couple different. And for this one, I'll read a little bit of the summary. It says, Dr. Brianna Ortiz's life is seriously flatlining. Her divorce is just about finalized. Her brother is running out of time to find a kidney donor, and that promotion she wants, oh, that's probably going to go to the new man doctor who's already registering 80-7 on Brianna's pain in the ace scale. But just when all systems are set to hate, Dr. Jacob Maddox completely flips the game by sending Brianna a letter. And I won't read the rest of it, but this one also just grabbed me. Once I got through the first 80 pages, I think I just finished the book in one day. Like, I'm telling you, all three of these books were such a delight to read, and I was like flying through them. One thing that I was pleasantly surprised about with this book is that it does have a fake dating trope in it, and I normally don't like that trope. But I think not only did I not mind it, but I liked it in this book. And I think part of that is because they weren't pretending to like be disgusted with each other. Like I don't like dramatic irony where like the reader or the audience knows things that the characters don't know, because I just like for my attention to be like kept better, I guess. I want to like be finding out with the characters. It kind of just feels like a come on, like waste of time. Like I'm just waiting on the characters to know what I know when that's part of the plot. So with the fake dating thing, with them not like pretending that they don't like each other, it like when it's between them, it felt more real, and it also didn't get boring for me. Typically with like a fake dating, they're like pretending like, oh no, we don't actually like each other when it's them. And like there was a little bit of that, but they weren't like disgusted with each other. I can't stand that kind of stuff. It's just so boring and overdone. Another thing that I liked is one of the characters in this book does have clinical anxiety, and I felt like the depiction of that, as well as like how their partner who doesn't have clinical anxiety, like how they move together and you know, like operate together. I'd never seen it written like that in a book. I thought it was so like well articulated. And again, it just kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how like I feel like Abby Jimenez does such a good job of pairing happy rom-com storylines with something of something of a little bit more substance and depth and like heaviness to it without being like dark, without like the darkness and depressiveness that you get in like literary fiction books. Couple things I didn't like about this book were, like I said, I don't really care for dramatic irony, and there was a little bit of like them just not communicating as being part of the plot, which kind of slowed it down just a little bit for me. But like I said, I still flew through it faster than I have other books, so take that with a grain of salt. Sorry, our power went out for a second and my battery overheated, so I have no idea what I was just talking about. Okay, we were still talking about yours truly, I think. But yeah, basically like the only downsides to this book were that because I don't like dramatic irony, the communication issues being like a pretty big part of the plot got a little bit boring for me. Like I said, I still flew through this book, so take that with a grain of salt. But if I had to nitpick, I would say like the lack of communication being like a big part of the storyline. I was kind of like, okay, like, and then it was a slow burn, and when they finally do communicate with one another, it felt a little bit anticlimactic because new problems arose. So it kind of felt like you didn't really get the like satisfaction of them finally like, okay, you both are on the same page now. Like you didn't get like the reward of that because it just moved right into like a new problem. So you're kind of like, but wait, like we waited the whole book for them to be on the same page. So I will say that, but it was still a really good book and I still liked it a lot. I should go ahead and say all three of these Abby Jimenez books got a 4 from me on Goodreads. And then the last Abby Jimenez book that I read was just for the summer. I know that this one just came out and it was really popular this summer. The summary on this one says, when it comes to love, Emma is cursed. Every guy she dates finds his true love after they break up. But it turns out she's not the only one afflicted with this condition. His name is Justin, and his Reddit thread about being love's good luck charm has gone viral. Now the two have come up with an ingenious plan. If they date each other, their curses will cancel out and they'll go on to find their soulmate. Only Justin wasn't supposed to be so unbelievably cute and hilarious. And I won't read the rest of it. But same thing with this one as the other two. Once I got through like the first 80 to 100 pages or so, like after that, I could not put it down. I was like picking it up and reading it in every minute of spare time that I had. This is the other one that has the content guidance, like the little trigger warning at the front. So just make sure you pay attention to that to make sure that this is something that you'd want to read. Oh, and something else that I liked about all three books all three books had this was the dual point of view between the man and the girl. As you guys know, I'm like kind of diving into the rom-com world. I haven't read a lot of rom-coms, so that was new for me and I really liked it. I've seen Instagram reels where people like get excited about like, you know, something happens from the female point of view and then it jumps into the male's point of view and you like cannot wait to see what he just thought about that. Like I was experiencing that in these books. I really like the dual point of view. Also, it's so hard to give spoiler-free reviews because I feel like all the stuff that I want to talk about, I can't. So maybe comment below if you want me to do a spoiler-inclusive review of these three books. We can like talk about it together if you've read it. But one thing I will say is that multiple characters from these two books come back into play with this one. And I swear I felt like when they came into the scene, like came into the book, it had the same feeling as like back in the day when you're watching Twilight for the first time in theaters and like each character makes their debut. Like when you see Carlisle for the first time and everybody's like freaking out like, oh my God, there he is. That's literally how I felt when some of the characters came into this book. I was like, oh my gosh. And what's crazy is that my mother-in-law read this book first and gave it to me. She's the one who kind of like introduced me into Abby Jimenez. And I was like, oh, I've heard of her. But I was like, before I read the one that you give me, I want to read these other two. So she hadn't read these before she read this one. She loved this book, but I feel like the plot twist that's in this book was like that much bigger of a plot twist because I read these two and had a lot more backstory than my mother-in-law had just reading this one. So like I said, I would read these in order if you can. And again, I'm trying really hard not to spoil it, but the plot twist in this book, when I tell you, like my facial expressions reading all three of these have been out of control. Like I was laughing, I was shook to my core, I was upset, I was like, Oh my gosh. Like, it's so good, you guys. You guys need to read the Abby Jimenez books. I cannot stress that enough. And if you've watched my channel, you know I've read a few like bad reads recently. Like, it's been a hot minute since I've like really enjoyed a book. And to be able to enjoy like all three of these, I was just like so pleasantly surprised. I cannot recommend these enough. Okay, so then the last two books that I've read since I last saw you guys were All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, or Dewar, I'm not sure, and Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epig. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but these were the other two books that I've read since the last time I saw you guys. We'll start with this one. I finished this one like at the end of July, I believe. This was a book, if you saw my Book Nook video, you know I literally picked it up in Barnes & Noble because of this beautiful, stunning cover. I had never heard of this book or anything. I hadn't seen it on Goodreads. Like, I literally just saw this in Barnes & Noble, and I read the inside jacket, which I'll refresh you guys really quick. It says, a dazzling historical novel about a legendary Chinese pirate queen, her fight to save her fleet from the forces allied against them, and the dangerous price of power. So between the book cover and the inside summary, I was hooked and I bought this book, and it disappointed me a little bit. It got like a 2.5/3 from me on Goodreads. And I think the biggest thing is that when you read the inside jacket, you kind of think you're gonna get this like female version of Pirates of the Caribbean, like a swashbuckling, adventurous like storyline. And instead, it's just like really dark and introspective and sad. I wrote in my notes when I was reading it, has an everything's terrible undertone that a lot of literary fiction tends to have. I wrote that the book reads more like an internal monologue of regrets and fate and trauma and purpose and gender roles, with quick peeks of gory, sad battles. Some people said it just wasn't marketed right, which could be true. So yeah, I was a little disappointed. Like I said, I thought this was going to be like a female Jack Sparrow kind of thing, but yeah, it had that literary fiction darkness to it. I don't know how else to describe that undertone. Comment below if you know what I'm talking about, or if you have a better way to like phrase that. Before we move on, I do want to acknowledge that I feel like this book probably took a lot of research to write. Like, from a historical fiction aspect, it was very insightful, but unfortunately at the end of the day, it wasn't fun for me to read. So that's just my honest opinion about it. And then lastly, we have All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and I read this because it was our book club pick this month, which I just joined. We just created me and three of my best friends. We all know each other from like elementary school and high school. We just started our own book club called It's Lit, and this was the first pick. It's also been turned into a TV show on Netflix, which I watched immediately after reading this. Overall, this one disappointed me a little bit as well, unfortunately. I don't know if it's because I had extra high hopes for this book with it being a Pulitzer Prize winner or what, but let me just read you the little summary. And sorry if I'm butchering these names. Marie Lauer, I'm not sure how you say her, like the second half of her first name. Marie Laure LeBlanc lives with her father in Paris near the Museum of Natural History where he works. When she is 12, the Nazis occupy Paris, and father and daughter flee to the walled citadel of Saint-Malo, where Marie Laure's reclusive great uncle lives in a tall house by the sea. With them, they carry what might be the museum's most valuable and dangerous jewel. So don't get me wrong, there was a lot about this book that I did like, and I think the show did a really good job of pulling out all the best parts of this book and making it like cinematic and hooking you with it. And they did change a lot in the show from the book. They changed a lot. But the same basic premise and storyline is still there, so I feel like the show did a really good job of like taking the best parts of the book and putting that on screen. But in the book, the storyline was extremely slow paced, like turtle slow. Like, I think I wrote down that the plot doesn't move for like the first 200 pages. Like, there is so much backstory, character building, environment building. Things happen very slowly in this book. I also, if you have read it, I wrote towards the beginning of my notes, I hate Von Rumpel. And then towards the bottom it says, still hate Von Rumpel. I was talking about it with my book club. I feel like if you want to read like a really powerful World War II story, I still stand on The Lilac Girls. I don't have it with me, my friend's borrowing it, but that book got a 5-star from me, and it's still like one of my favorites, especially like if you're wanting to read a World War II story. One thing about this book that I wrote down that I did think was like very insightful is that the timeline does jump at the end. So like you're reading mostly like during the time of war or right before war for the majority of the book, and then at the end like it jumps to the 1970s and the 2000s, and like as a reader who you're reading what's happening to these characters at every waking moment through war, like all the traumatic things that happen, and then all of a sudden one of them's eating a TV dinner in the 1970s. It just puts everything into perspective in a very jarring way of like these people's lives and how they carried on, and how like you live through what they went through with them, and then all of a sudden it's 1970 and everything's fine, and the world is going on around them, and like kids are playing, and you're like, everything that they experience, I can't imagine trying to like go on in this world and just trying to like be normal and exist like with the PTSD that they carry. It gives you a like, at least for me, that was very like insightful and created a lot of empathy. Not that I didn't already have empathy, but created even more empathy for survivors of war. This doesn't spoil anything, but I just think it's a really like insightful detail that I had wrote down. Like one of the characters, all the years later, they can't handle shoes being too big on their feet, because that is like triggering for them and takes them back to like when they were just wearing whatever shoes that they could find during war era. So it's just small things like that, like reading how they are getting through life later. But yeah, like I said, overall, if you are wanting to read a World War II book, I would read The Lilac Girls over this one. So that is all the books that I read since I last talked to you guys, and I thought it'd be fun to wrap up with my fall TBR. Okay, here it is. My fall to be read list is coming up. I'm not sure what order I'm gonna read all these in, but I'm hoping to read all of these in September, October, and November. And I am missing one from the stack. We just picked out our October book club pick. Our book club meets every other month, but I'm really excited. Stay tuned to see what book we're reading for that. I'll leave it a surprise, but these are the books that I already own that I'm trying to get through. And if you haven't watched my other videos or you don't already know, this is the bulk of my stack that is currently on my nightstand. I have a goal. I'm trying to get through majority of the books on my nightstand, or all of them if possible, by the end of the year before I go on another like big book buying spree. So this one is Anne of Green Gables, and I literally just picked this up because I was at a used bookstore and found this in perfect condition for like $1 or $2 or something crazy like that, and it's this beautifully illustrated one. I think this is a Rifle Paper Co. book, right? Anna Bond of Rifle Paper Co., a worldwide stationery and gift brand, is an artist known for her whimsical designs, which often include hand-painted illustrations and lettering. She works with her husband in Winter Park, Florida. So yeah, Anna Bond did the design for this book. And I'm pretty sure that there's that one like viral quote about October that came from this book, so I thought it'd be fitting to read during fall. Next up is The Sunflower Sisters by Martha Hall Kelly. This is the same author that wrote The Lilac Girls. I'm not even entirely sure if the stories are connected. I think they are, but I cannot remember off the top of my head right now how they're connected. If it was like the mothers of the ladies who were in Lilac Girls or something. I know that there's another book by her that is also super popular, Lost Roses. So Lilac Girls, Lost Roses, and The Sunflower Sisters. I'm not sure exactly what order they are supposed to be in. If I can find it, I'll put it on screen. But I read Lilac Girls already, and my mother-in-law gave me this one as well. So I'm excited to jump into this one. It's been probably over a year since I read Lilac Girls, so that one's on the list. Next up is The Banned Bookshop of Maggie Banks by Shauna Robinson. I got this in my blind date with a book pick that I got from a bookshop in Savannah. So complete blind date, had no idea what to expect, and I'm super excited to read it. It has a shout out from Abby Jimenez on the book, so that's a good sign. It says, when Maggie Banks arrives in Bell River to run her best friend's struggling bookstore, she expects to sell bestsellers to her small town clientele. But running a bookstore in a town with a famously bookish history isn't easy. Bell River's Literary Society insists on keeping the bookstore stuck in the past, and Maggie is banned from selling anything written this century. So when a series of mishaps suddenly tip the bookstore towards ruin, Maggie will have to get creative to keep the shop afloat. So it's bookish. It looks fall-ish. I'm really excited to read this one too. I've never even heard of this book or this author, so excited to check it out. Next, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I have read Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation, and Beach Read, and so far Book Lovers is a 5-star for me. I loved that book, and I didn't like the other two. So I want to read this one. I still need to read Happy Place. I am wanting to continue to read through the Emily Henry books just to see what my opinion is on them. I think this one's a fake dating trope as well. It says, Daphne always loved the way her fiance Peter told their story. How they met on a blustery day, fell in love over an errant hack, and moved back to his lakeside hometown to begin their life together. He really was good at telling it, right up until the moment he realized he was actually in love with his childhood best friend Petra. Which is how Daphne begins her new story, stranded in beautiful Waning Bay, Michigan, without friends or family, but with a dream job as a children's librarian that barely pays the bills, and proposing to be roommates with the only person who could possibly understand her predicament, Petra's ex, Miles Nowak. So I will read this one and keep you guys posted. Like I said, Book Lovers is the only one I've liked by her so far. So we'll see. And then lastly on my fall TBR, I have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I have not read this yet, and I know the hype around it. It has been sitting on my nightstand for months, just because I've been trying to get through all these other books first. But I do plan on reading Fourth Wing and hopefully Iron Flame after that if I like this one. And it will have been my first fantasy in a hot minute. Like, I don't even remember the last fantasy I read. It might have been Twilight. I don't know. But it says 20-year-old Violet Sorrengail was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, also known as her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. Ooh! So I won't read the rest of it, but it does have this really cool map on the inside. So I am really excited to read this book. It says Fly or Die. I've heard a million good things about it, so I will keep you guys updated on this as well. And that's going to wrap up today's video, all my recent reads and upcoming TBR. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!